Being critical is not the same as being judgmental. Yet many leaders and managers confuse the two. Welcome to another episode of Coaching Talk series where we explore the intersections of business, work, and life through the lens of personal and professional development. And today's conversation explores a crucial distinction for leaders: how to use our critical thinking without succumbing to judgmental thinking. Albert Einstein once said, "We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them." Now, this reminds us that a sharp critical mind is essential for problem solving. But it also warns us not to trap ourselves in the narrow and reactive thinking relating to judgment. As leaders, coaches, and everyday decision makers, our ability to think critically can help us to see possibilities, identify opportunities, and make more informed decisions. But when critical thinking hardens into judgment, it shuts people down, it kills collaboration, and erodes trust. And today, we'll explore how to keep our minds sharp and our hearts open. Key point number 1. The difference between critical and judgmental thinking. Now, critical thinking is about curiosity, exploration, and asking questions. On the other hand, judgment is about labeling, condemning, and dismissing. And think of a team leader who reviews a project plan. A critical thinker asks, what works here? What could be improved? What's missing? But a judgmental leader might snap, this is sloppy. You clearly don't get it. Now, the first approach invites growth, and the second shuts down motivation. I once worked with a manager who believed that being critical meant pointing out flaws in every idea. The result? A team that stopped sharing ideas altogether. And when the manager shifted from assigning blame to asking questions, creativity began to blossom. Key point number 2. How to train our critical mind to stay compassionate. Now, critical thinking can be sharpened like a tool, but compassion is the handle that makes it usable. Without compassion, the tool becomes a weapon. Now, here are some practical ways to train this balance. Pause before reacting. A 3-second pause can prevent judgment from spilling out. Ask and don't assume. So replace "that won't work" with "what's the thinking behind this?" And remember the human factor. Behind every idea is a person who needs to feel respected. In business, compassion keeps evaluation from feeling like a tax. In life, compassion turns criticism into support. And at work, compassion fosters psychological safety, the foundation of innovation. Now, key point number 3. Leaders as mirrors, meaning what we reflect matters. Now, leaders serve as mirrors. Our reactions influences the team's confidence and energy. When we mirror harsh judgment, we instill fear. And when we mirror constructive curiosity, we foster growth. Now here's another pertinent story about a senior executive who was taken aback by her body language. What happened was simple but telling. She had a habit of raising her eyebrow that stopped her team's conversation. She did this even if she wasn't speaking. And her team viewed this as a judgmental posture. And that communicated volumes. By learning to soften her expressions and intentionally ask clarifying questions, she transformed how her team engaged with her. In leadership, perception is often powerful, but projection also gets magnified. Now, key point number 4, the ripple effect in business, work, and life. Now, critical thinking without judgment has ripple effects across every area of life. In business, it builds stronger decision-making processes and encourages diverse perspectives. In the workplace, it creates cultures where feedback is a gift and not a threat. In our personal lives, it strengthens relationships because loved ones feel safe. They know they can share without fear of harsh criticism. For example, imagine a family dinner where someone shares a new career idea. A judgmental response might be, "That will never work." And that can crush dreams. But a critical yet compassionate response could be, "That's an interesting idea. How would you approach it?" And that opens up space for exploration. The difference isn't small, but it doesn't kill the hopes and dreams of the other. And point number 5, here are a few practical steps to cultivate non-judgmental critical thinking. 1, practice self-awareness and notice when you're labeling instead of questioning. 2, use neutral language. Swap wrong for unclear and needs work. 3, develop empathy. Imagine how the other person feels when hearing your response. And number 4, encourage dialogue. Critical thinking flourishes in conversations, but not in monologue. And for instance, a manager in a team session offering feedback can approach a team member in this way. "Help me understand your approach." And that single phrase will disarm defensiveness and nourish trust. And in the end, team members won't be challenged, but they will be supported. Now, let's bring this podcast to a close. Critical thinking is one of the most valuable tools a leader can carry on. But without compassion, it becomes a blade that cuts rather than shapes. Leaders who master the art of critical thinking can empower their teams and strengthen relationships and build lasting trust. Now, let's bring this podcast to a close. Critical thinking is one of the most valuable tools a leader can carry, but without compassion, it becomes a blade that cuts rather than shapes. Leaders who master the art of being critical without being judgmental empower teams and strengthen relationships and build lasting trust. So here's my challenge for you this week. Take note of one moment where you feel the urge to judge quickly. Pause and reframe it into a question, and then see how the conversation unfolds. Now, thank you for listening today, and if you find that you've gained value from this podcast, please subscribe, Share it with someone you know, and I thank you for doing so. In our next Coaching Talk episode, we'll continue our journey with balancing ambition and rest. How leaders can pursue excellence without burning out. Until then, keep your mind sharp and your heart open. I'm Richard Fontenay, and we'll see you next Wednesday, if not before. Bye now.